So Nitro. Number 135, also, of course, April 13th, 1998.
135 of these are exactly like the first one.
Yes. We'll recap it, but it should all be very familiar to you. Fit Finlay versus Scott Steiner.
Okay, I got to ask about this. The very beginning of the match, Scott Steiner comes out, and Larry the Axe Hennig, Curt's father, and Dick Rude, Rick Rude's father, who were friends, are standing there in the front row watching the show. Scott Steiner comes out, and he starts yelling at the Axe. And I'm thinking, the Axe's son is in the NWO, Scott. You're in the NWO.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck's going on here? So then one of the announcers says something like, I'm sure that the Axe is appalled at his son's behavior. And I'm thinking, okay, well, they're in Minneapolis or whatever. And so I'm sure Larry's supposed to be like the elderly babyface legend, and his son's a prick. I had that in my mind for the whole fucking show until the end when Curt Hennig comes out, hugs his dad, they're on the same page, and Curt's a heel and his dad's a heel. What the fuck was Scott doing here?
Entertaining himself. I don't know. He seemed to be, and I'm saying this is by Scott Steiner standards, by the way. He was in a bad mood from the get-go. He's manhandling Finlay in the ring, which is his gimmick, and Lord knows Finlay can take it. He leaves the ring to yell at Larry Hennig for no reason, and he gets back in the ring. And if any of you are going to watch the show, when Steiner, he leaves the ring to yell at the Axe, he gets in the ring, watch the elbow he hits Finlay with. He just walks up and elbows him in the mouth as hard as he can. Finlay, of course, when it's his turn, he's not afraid to hold back, never has been. So at least these two guys are clobbering each other. And Steiner finished him off with a middle rope exploder and the Steiner recliner for the win. A fun, mean guy match. They still have no idea what to do with Bret Hart. It's been months.
Well, they kind of figured it out in this show, briefly. He's there. He thinks he's sick of talking about being screwed. Granted, I'm watching this with 19 years of hindsight, but will this fucking guy stop talking about the goddamn screw job? He doesn't like being screwed. If anybody gets screwed, he's going to be there. If anybody needs help, he's going to be there for him.
What they did was they took what may have been one decent sit-down promo and cut it up into about 20 terrible short sit-down promos.
Dude.
He just kept coming back and he'd say one sentence and he'd go away. So let's repeat his claim here because this is important later. If any promoter tries to screw over a wrestler, Bret's going to intervene. He will not let anyone get screwed over by promoters. Remember that. Lenny Lane versus Ultimo Dragon.
I never realized how great Ultimo Dragon was until he had a good match with Lenny Lane.
Saying quite a bit.
Lenny Lane was horrible, and they had a good match.
And Lenny was on offense for most of it.
Yeah.
Ultimo Dragon gave him this match. Apparently, he worked a lot in Minnesota. He got a good reaction. So they gave him a lot here in this match before Dragon put him out with a sleeper. And even there on the finish, Lenny accidentally escaped the Dragon sleeper. So Dragon had to kick him in the back and put it back on. The other thing of note here is they're talking about Bret's hockey team, the Calgary Hitmen.
Well, what was weird, actually, about the Dragon Sleeper was Dragon slipped behind, but I guess he's got a good arm to do the fucking sleeper. And so he slipped behind and grabbed him with the wrong arm.
I see.
And then kicked him and switched arms.
I didn't notice that detail.
I did not know that it was so important to use your good arm to do a Dragon Sleeper.
Or a stunner.
I guess.
That's a lesson learned here in 1998.
We've learned a lot here, yeah.
They just plugged the Calgary Hitmen and their Western Hockey League playoff series against the, not making this up, and they're still around, Brandon Wheat Kings. The Kings of Wheat. Getting their plug here on Nitro. Just makes me laugh. We had more of Bret talking. All he wanted was a fair shot at the world title, whether he won or lost. They go to the announcers who flap their gums for like 5 minutes. Just talking. They throw it to Mean Gene, who's interviewing Roddy Piper. First, Roddy Piper, again, says Hogan and Nash are gay. And then he books them in a match against each other tonight. Didn't he?
Yes.
Okay, he booked them in a match against each other tonight. And then he says, after that, I'm going to fight Hogan myself. Timeout.
Yes, he's a coward.
Not just a coward who wants to fight a man who's already been through a fight. He's a crooked promoter. He's screwing Hulk Hogan here.
So Bret Hart should
Where is Bret Hart to punch Piper in the mouth?
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe he was going to, but Hogan beat him to the punch. Because Hogan shows up and wipes him out. Hogan and Disciple lay him out. Disciple manages to hit a stunner in the hallway without breaking his hip, which actually, is an achievement.
It was so bad.
Well, hey, I would much rather have him do a bad stunner than a stunner where he breaks something. So they go to commercial, come back, and Gene brings Giant out for a promo.
You know what's so funny about that, by the way? That was a pre-taped segment, like from a week earlier. So we, as viewers, were supposed to believe that was backstage on this show. But later in the show, one of the announcers, I think it was Bischoff actually, commented that if you want to see Hogan, he's in LA right now on Jay Leno. Can they get anything fucking straight?
Well, he did say tonight on the Leno show, is where he put it. So theoretically, Hogan could have watched Disciple do a stunner in this hallway, stampede out the door, get in a private jet, and fly to Los Angeles with a time change.
I guess. Except Leno's pre-taped.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, they were full of shit. I tried. Giant comes out for a promo. Giant promises that Piper's going to be ready for Spring Stampede. Runs down Hogan, runs down Nash, all the NWO. Says in this bat match, you're supposed to climb up and grab this bat, but I'm so big, I'm so athletic, I'll just jump up and grab it. He cuts a really good promo about wiping out Hogan and especially going to take out Kevin Nash. This is a very, very good promo. And again, I'm just saying, this guy at this point had been a pro wrestler for like 3 years.
He was very, very talented.
He was very good.
You know, Charlotte's only been a wrestler for 3 years.
She as a wrestler was better than Giant was here. Although Giant was a better promo. Johnny Grunge versus Chavo Guerrero Jr. When I saw Johnny Grunge come out for a singles match, I battened down the hatches. I was prepared for all kinds of horror.
They decided that Public Enemy needed to do 2 singles matches tonight.
Yeah. Well,
they didn't have enough people on their roster.
One, they had an idea for Rocco rocking the table later, or I guess it could be either guy. But so that left Grunge with nothing to do, so they said, have him wrestle Chavo. Doing this match, Chavo knows what he's doing. Grunge totally held his own.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, it sure was. That was much better than I thought it would be. Chavo tries a sunset flip.
You realize that like a lot of those ECW guys in the early 90s, I mean, they were given gimmicks and outfits where it looked like they had just been pulled out of the crowd and were backyarders.
Yeah.
They'd been places. They'd been wrestlers and they'd been trained.
I see your point. But I've seen a lot of Johnny Grunge matches.
Well, yeah, because they always wanted him to do the Public Enemy bullshit. Now he was wrestling Chavo and he just had to wrestle. It was all right.
It was certainly all right. Chavo tried a sunset flip. Grunge sat down, hooked the legs, got the win. This had to be the biggest singles win of his career. He beat a name guy on Nitro. Not a star, not a top star at least, but he got a win on Nitro. Bret Hart's back. Here's everything he said. Nash is scum and Hogan's worse. Nothing can make me happier than to see those two snakes kill each other off. Fade to black. Again, did this need to be 18 different promos? So Nash comes out for a promo. Says Hogan has fled the building in fear. So you can't wrestle Hogan. Piper's already laid out. Can't wrestle Piper. Nobody knows where the Macho Man is. The hospital? A medical clinic somewhere? He was nearly run over last week.
A medical facility.
Yeah.
By the way, he was backstage because he came out later.
As we found out, yes.
Nash hasn't been looking around very carefully.
He may have literally, from where he was sitting, looked around, not seen him, figured he's not here.
Nash got his revenge for Piper's gay joke. Had to tell one of his own.
Yeah.
Fucked it up.
I'm not gay, you're gay.
Probably thought it was so clever.
Yes, I did.
Nash is a hideous promo.
I didn't even write it down.
Something about George Michael.
Who you call George Michaels. Said he might be champion right now if not for Hogan's interference last week. At this point, Sting came running out, and I do mean running out. I don't know what got into Sting. He had more fire here than we may have seen since he put on the crow makeup. He was on fire.
Probably saw the way he was booked later and figured I better fire.
By the way, he's been booked since Starrcade. It goes down as people look back and say, well, Sting was a failure as champion, and Hogan was still a star. And you go back and watch, it's like, no, Sting had no chance at champion.
Of course not.
With the obvious exception of Rey Mysterio, there has never been a guy who was champion for more than a couple of weeks who's booked this badly. from start to finish. He won the title poorly. He was booked to defend the title poorly. He was shunted down the totem pole every week.
I would argue that the end of Seth Rollins' last title run was much worse than Sting's whole run.
That certainly
when
sucked
he lost
as well.
19 matches out of 20.
That certainly sucked
as
as well.
champion.
Yeah. So Sting says, yes, I want to give Nash a title match tonight. Nash can even use the bat if he wants. Dylan says, you don't make the matches. WCW makes the matches. If you want to wrestle for the title, it's got to wait till the main event. Then Sting says, I want the powerbomb reinstated too. Nash is happy about this. Dylan says, fine.
What a dumb baby face.
And Nash says, how about the bat? And Dylan says, no, not the bat. So Nash keeps taunting Sting. Sting had left to leave. And when Nash started taunting him, Sting dashes back to the ring, rolls inside, does a dozen crotch chops, runs away. Sting was in a mood. Glacier versus Chris Benoit. The announcers are talking about how Glacier had failed to live up to the hype of his big debut, which is true. Larry's claim, this just proves the inferiority of karate compared to pro wrestling.
You know, it's so
pro wrestling
funny.
is strongest.
It's so funny because Larry spends 4 minutes and 21 seconds, which is the length of this match, just going on and on about how you can't come into this sport and only do karate. You've got to learn how to wrestle. You can't be a wrestler and not wrestle. It's all about wrestling. He's burying the martial arts and karate. Wasn't Larry a martial arts expert like 2 years ago?
Larry Sick claimed to be his own black belt in both strong style and soft style. Okinawan style he knew.
Exactly. Yeah. But man, now he's totally anti-karate.
Yeah. Glacier did his best to match Benoit's intensity. It was a fun 4 minutes and whatever. And then Benoit caught him in the crossface for the submission win. I showed a clip from Thunder. Buff Bagwell calling out Lex Luger. Points out he is 5-1 against the total package. Turns his back to the camera, flares his lats to show the jacket he's wearing has a self-portrait on the back. So he makes his own face as big as it can be, and Tony looks into the camera and does the biggest eye roll you ever saw. Bagwell was great, everyone.
He wasn't just a great character, but his match with Luger...
We'll get to that.
He's so... And it's almost over.
I know. I think on Thunder after this, I think.
It's like any day now. He breaks his neck. He's out. They fuck up his return. He's never the same. God, I don't know. Bagwell's had a lot of personal issues, and I don't know if it's a result of the broken neck and the pain or whatever. But man, this is like a major big-time tragedy that did not involve death in this business.
And it almost did.
With Buff Bagwell.
Yeah, for my cause... After going back and watching the Monday Night War start to finish, Buff Bagwell is most famously remembered for having one terrible match with Booker T in Tacoma. And that's not fair. I'm going to champion Buff Bagwell as a fun, entertaining pro wrestler for like a decade, by the way, because he's a great babyface tag team guy for years before the NWO. Buff Bagwell was awesome, and I will not have that argued. So later on Thunder, Luger and Scott Steiner got into a brawl, which gave Rick Steiner a chance to come out and hit Eric Bischoff with a suplex on the floor. And this just came out as they have no idea what they're doing and just said, you four guys closest to the curtain, go out there and do something fun.
Not to mention it's Thunder, and Bischoff is the Vince McMahon of WCW. And you just randomly wasted a big suplex on the cement for Eric Bischoff that, by the way, he didn't even fucking sell. Like, he comes out later on the show, he briefly grabs his back, but then he's smiling and he just comes to the ring. What a fucking waste.
Yeah. So here we are back live on Nitro, and Bischoff and Bagwell come out for a promo. Fan holds up a sign that reads, Roids Shrinked Nuts. I do not see Bagwell's appearance on Gigolos. If anyone can say what that has to do with him, I don't know. So Buff Bagwell, whose whole gimmick is that he loves his own physique so much, he calls himself Buff. He made fun of Lex Luger for flexing too much.
Because he's the greatest.
Because he's a hypocrite. He heals hypocrites, and he's awesome. Promises that Rick Steiner has a beating coming for the suplex he hit to Bischoff, but first he's going to beat Luger tonight. And here was where Bischoff added, Hogan would take care of Rick Steiner himself, but he has to leave to do the Leno show. And in hindsight, what a horrible plug.
God.
You get your top guy on a major network talk show, and you throw it out there halfway through the show at random?
Yep. They did not know what they were doing. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not.
No, they did not. So we had Luger versus Bagwell. So Buff, it would be fair to say that he did 90% the same match every single night, but God, it was a fun match. And he ran wild early. He did all his wacky posing. And finally, Lex made a comeback and knocked him out of the ring. And when Bagwell got to his feet, Lex did his imitation of Buff's wacky poses.
With the smile. It wasn't even the flexing. It was when he did the flexing and the stupid Bagwell smile.
Yeah.
I howled.
There are things that we watch and we have forgotten. Jeff Jarrett's return as the Double J. Henry Godwin's entire career after breaking his neck. And then there's moments that I remember crystal clear 19 years later, and Lex doing this spot was one of them. Lex's wacky dance and his wacky pose and his wacky smile making fun of Buff, everyone laughing, and Buff getting mad because now they're making a fool out of him for flexing too much. This was so great.
It's like one of those things like when Randy Orton did that giant split jump during his comeback.
Yes, I'll never forget that either.
You'll never forget it because it never happened before. And maybe happened one time after. It was so out of character. The fucking Viper.
Yeah.
He did a giant split jump and a babyface comeback.
Not even a comeback. After the match.
It was ridiculous.
It was like a celebration. So they had a fun match. Lex dodged the blockbuster, made his comeback, called for the torture rack, and the place was going nuts, but he put it on, and Bischoff hit the ring and kicked him for the DQ. Lex, who was carrying a 250-pound man or bigger on his back, no-sold all these kicks to the ribs.
Exactly, because a goddamn executive, when they kick a wrestler, the wrestler doesn't sell it. They look at him like he's a bug.
Yes.
They don't fucking sell for the guy.
So Lex put Bischoff in the rack. Scott Steiner runs out. Rick Steiner runs out. And ordinarily, this would be a dumb DQ finish when they could have just, Buff Bagwell can lose. It's okay. But at least the way it was all done, you can see, okay, they're setting up a tag match. That's fine. Now, I don't think that tag match ever happened because I'm pretty sure Bagwell hurt his neck on the next show.
All I know is that this harkens back to the good old days when the wrestlers were placed on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Now they're just like everybody else.
No, much lower.
Just a bunch of fucking geeks. They go toe-to-toe with executives. They're poorer than the fans.
Yes.
Like, the fans at least are employable. The wrestlers aren't.
No.
It's just amazing.
If they lose their jobs, the WWE, destitute.
They're fucked.
Welfare.
They're
Nothing
fucked.
else. Chris Jericho versus Super Calo. Jericho does a promo saying, "This is not Super Calo. This is Prince Nakamaki in a horrible Super Calo costume. And a man Calo unmask and reveal himself." The ref bought this claim. Said, "I better investigate." But of course, he doesn't want to reveal Super Calo here on live television. So he goes up to him and peels up just the bottom of the mask and I just peek underneath it. I don't know if I hope it was supposed to be stupid. It was really stupid.
Pretty sure it was supposed to be stupid.
So Jericho jumps Calo, and then they had a bad match. They fucked up the very first spot they did, they fucked up the very last spot they did, and they fucked up some stuff in the middle. Jericho eventually won with the Boston Crab. Iakea runs out, chases Jericho away. Jericho, who of course claimed Prince Iakea was Super Calo, now says, "This proves Prince Iakea has a twin brother." Sticking to his guns. Bret Hart said he would always be there to help Sting. That was it. Hammer versus Saturn.
What the fuck was going on here? This was Flock versus Flock, with other Flock members getting involved.
Last week, I remember this. I don't think any of them said anything. Last week, Goldberg beat Hammer, and afterwards, Saturn put Hammer in the rings of Saturn.
I remember that.
Apparently upset he had lost. So I guess this was Hammer out for revenge?
Teaching him a hard love lesson, I guess?
No one gave a shit either way.
No, nobody cared. It was stupid.
They wrestled a while. Saturn hit the head-on suplex in the rings of Saturn for the win.
And it was bad.
It was bad. Rocco Rock versus Goldberg.
Dude, Goldberg is amazing. He's so amazing.
Breaking news.
It is breaking news. I gotta remind everybody every week about how special Goldberg was and how awesome he was. He was the biggest star on this show. All he had to do was go out there and slaughter people in as sloppy a manner as possible. That's what made it magic.
So the
And
reason
Rocco Rock is a great body to be slaughtered
he
here.
was a great lamb, yes.
Oh, man.
So the reason Public Enemy did singles matches is because they had an idea for a spot with a table. So Rock is getting destroyed, of course, but he's able to lure Goldberg outside and throw him into these stairs and the post and cut him off for a moment. Rocco says, "This is my chance," and he throws a table into the ring. He sets the table up in the corner, but as quick as he does that, Goldberg's back on his feet. So Rocco turns around, Goldberg spears him through the table, and then hits a jackhammer and wins. And everyone loves him. So Goldberg then calls out Saturn, who is coming down the aisle ready to fight. Raven runs out, moving as fast as I've ever seen him run.
Oh, my God. This! Some fucking fan wipes him out. And I mean, this fan wiped him out. Flew in from behind, fucking took him down. And the weirdest thing was, they left the camera on it for a while.
They cut to it.
Security jumps in, the announcer's like, wow. Because I'm sure the announcers had no fucking idea what was going on. They probably thought it was part of the show. So they're commenting on it. They're handcuffing this guy. Raven rips his shirt off. He's ready to kick this guy's ass. And then they never brought it up again.
Now, do we know for sure it was a fan 20 years later? Because
I'm virtually positive.
it certainly looked like a fan. The only reason I ask is because it was a big dude with a long black ponytail, and at some point in the near future, Raven does start teaming up or doing stuff with Canyon. So I don't know if maybe it was him. I don't know.
I don't remember.
It's WCW.
But they sure, if this was a storyline, they sure did a hell of a job with it because I bought it.
That's true. So yeah, Raven doesn't want Saturn to fight yet. So Kidman and Sick Boy tried to fight Goldberg. They tried. It did not go well for them. And the best part of all of this, Bobby Heenan, he goes out there and does his job every week, but it's just a job. Bobby Heenan loves himself some Goldberg.
He should.
Bobby Heenan has been around wrestling a long, long time, all over the place, and he knows that you do not find Goldbergs on street corners all the time.
No, he flat out said, this is the man of the millennium. In 2000, all people will be talking about is Bill Goldberg. And he was right.
He was right.
I mean, he's hardly a prophet. It was fucking patently obvious.
He was not alone in this prediction.
I mean, the only one who couldn't figure this out, I mean, you could maybe say this place is so fucked up that they're going to screw up Goldberg. But I mean, if you had any faith whatsoever in these people, Goldberg was the next big thing. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
It's not like today where you look at the WWE roster today, and there is no Goldberg. There's no person that you look at and you go, that guy is the next big thing. If they just went all the way with this guy, he's the one that everybody reacts to more than anybody else on the show. No matter what he does or who he's with, they go nuts for the guy. There is no Goldberg on the roster today.
Well, no, but there's almost never a Goldberg on any roster in history.
That's true.
He's very special.
That's true. But even watching Raw, you could see that The Rock and you could see Steve Austin.
Yeah.
And The Rock hadn't broken out yet. And you could see Goldberg here. You don't see nobody like that today.
No, I guess not. Now, in the weird timing department, we've already seen Goldberg squash 3 men, really. Then they did a Goldberg video package.
Yeah.
It's paled in comparison.
I presume that this was supposed to air before.
I guess.
But they fucked it up.
Yeah. And it wasn't terrible, but WCW video packages were never that good. And this paled in comparison to what I had just seen Goldberg do. Had clips of dorks at a Nitro party, although I will say at least these dorks had some girls there. Yuji Nagata versus Curt Hennig.
All right, this show was in Minneapolis. There's no way that these fucking people thought there was any chance that Curt Hennig was going to be booed in Minneapolis in a match with his father, the legendary Larry the Axe Hennig, in the front row facing Yuji Nagata. This guy was so over. He beat the shit out of Nagata. This was a 3-minute squash match, just destroyed the guy. It was awesome.
The best part is they drag him over to the father's, and Axe stands up and he pulls off his sweater. He's got a Hennig Rules shirt on.
Yeah, Ole Anderson made that for him.
Probably did. Hennig won with the fisherman suplex. And then Rude handcuffs Nagata to the ropes, and then Jim Neidhart runs out to chase them away.
Dude. Jim fucking Neidhart. We're going to see Curt Hennig versus Jim Neidhart.
I guess.
That sounds just appalling. I mean, any match with Jim Neidhart sounds appalling.
This is the problem.
But the idea you've got
Blanking
Curt
Jim Neidhart
Hennig
is a
on
bad
the show,
recipe.
who, when he's in a good mood, is awesome. You're going to put him in there with Jim Neidhart.
Parka versus Booker T. Heenan asks Shivani, have you ever worn a mask? And then before Tony can answer, he clarifies, in public. That was funny. Had a pretty good brawl. People were not much into it. And Booker won with the usual sequence: scissors kick, flapjack, spinneroonie, side kick, missile dropkick, pin. Parka goes to attack Booker with a chair afterwards, but Benoit runs out, puts a stop to that. Booker saw this, offers a handshake, but Benoit shoves him. They shove him back and forth. That's how it ends. Raven DDP video package. And then we had Rage versus Page. Robbie Rage of High Voltage and Diamond Dallas Page.
You know what I do love about Diamond Dallas Page is there are certain things that you see in wrestling. It's like nobody today wrestles like Chris Benoit. Nobody today wrestles like Eddie Guerrero. I mean, there are things that it was so before its time. Diamond Dallas Page set up for the Diamond Cutter is so primitive. Like Randy Orton has brought it to such a level that the charm of throw the guy to the buckle, hit it on the way out. It's like people go nuts for that back then. You look at it today and it's like, that would be a lazy day for Randy Orton. That's all he could come up with. I'll throw this fucking vintner to the buckle. He's just horrible, so I got to idiot-proof this. Bounce out and I'll hit it. Nothing difficult.
I just like, Rage gets a minute or two of offense, so he says, I shall do a springboard splash.
And it was good.
It was huge.
I mean, it was.
There was one he did like months ago. It was a tag match, but he did a springboard like almost overshot and went out of the ring.
I love it because his springboard splash, if you've never seen it, he gets on the apron, he does a springboard, he bounces like 30 feet in the air, and he never stretches out. Yes. It's like if you got on all fours, that's the position he's in the whole time, and he lands on the guy. I've never seen it like this before.
Yes.
It's like he's afraid to stretch out.
So Page wins. Raven comes out with a flock. Says it's all Page's fault. He spent 3 years wrestling in barbed wire and fire. And here's where the fan was at. Yeah, earlier when Raven came out, he just stopped Saturn, and that was it. Here is where Raven sends the flock out to brawl with Page, and as the flock is brawling with Page, here's where Raven is hit by the fan. So there you go. Conan versus Rick Steiner. Highlight of this was Steiner had DiBiase in his corner, who was still employed. Conan had Vincent in his corner. So they just had Ted DiBiase and Virgil renew their rivalry. That's all the fans cared about.
Ted DiBiase just gave him a beating.
Yeah.
So great.
Rick hit the diving bulldog for the win. A Sting, Savage, Hogan, Nash video package. And the main event for the world title, Kevin Nash versus Sting with a powerbomb legal.
This match was so boring. The actual wrestling match.
It was very slow. You could charitably call it methodical.
Nash is moving like a glacier.
I would say more like a tree.
Sting is just there.
Nash would hit a power move, slowly stand up, pace back and forth a bit, hit another power move, pace back and forth a little bit.
Swear to God, I'm watching this. It's a world title match. And of course, I don't give one shit about it because number one, it's boring. And number two, I'm just thinking, what's the NWO run-in going to be this week? What? I had no faith that there would not be a run-in.
It's funny you should mention that because the most exciting parts of this match, the body of this match are, like every 30 seconds, one guy would jump up and look who was coming up the aisle. And this, of course, caused the fans, it's like a school of fish. They all stand and look at the aisle. So they look at the aisle, they're looking through the crowd, they're looking at the rafters. They know at any point there's going to be interference, and that's when the fun really starts. The match itself is boring.
They were getting ready, too, because the moment Randy Savage starts walking down to the ring, it was an avalanche of garbage in that ring.
Oh, yeah.
And nothing had even happened yet.
No.
They were just like, God damn it, start throwing the shit now.
So, let's see. Liz
Talk about how Sting got completely obliterated.
Yes, Liz takes the ref. Savage hits Sting with his cast. Nash makes the cover. Sting did kick out of the cast shot. And I was trying to figure out why Savage would try to ruin his own title shot he's getting at the pay-per-view. Nash hits the powerbomb, makes a cover, but Bret's there to yank the ref out of the ring, and that's a DQ. And here...
Yeah, because Sting was pinned.
Essentially, yeah.
Bret Hart
for the second week in a row.
For being pinned in the middle of the ring by a move that he legalized, that had otherwise been illegal.
Yes. So the show ends with Sting in a crumpled, broken, pathetic heap on the mat as Bret Hart, by himself, beats up all the NWO.
Everybody. Bret Hart single-handedly beat up every single person that was there in the building that was in the NWO.
So Bret is clearly a bigger babyface than Sting. Piper and Giant are bigger babyfaces than Sting. Lex Luger is a bigger babyface than Sting. You could argue, due to dissension, Kevin Nash is a bigger babyface than Sting. Goldberg is clearly a bigger babyface than Sting. There may have been 10 guys who were more over as babyfaces than their world champion. This championship sucked.
Not to mention, the show goes off the air with Bret Hart single-handedly beating up every single member of the NWO. In 2 weeks, it's Sting versus Savage.
I think it's Sunday.
I think it's 2 weeks.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. The point is, who could possibly fucking care?
I don't know.
This show's a disaster. It is a complete disaster. And Raw won.
It certainly did.
At the beginning of the end.
So there we go.
All right, everybody, that's it. We're going to wrap it up here for today. Back to the normal schedule on Thursday. Well, tomorrow, obviously. But Thursday we'll be back with NXT and more Starrcade. Starrcade 84 Part 2. And Raw and Granny. So check that out. And that is it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Bye.